The starting rotation is going to need some help next season, and there are a couple of free agent pitchers that I've been kind of looking at, and I hope that Hein Bloom and company will look at as well. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis, a lifetime Cardinals fan since I was a wee little boy. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Big thank you to all of our everydayers for being here with us throughout the season and now into the offseason. And for those of you who are new, welcome. Welcome aboard. We hope you enjoy the Cardinals content that we offer you. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation and gives you all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, today's episode, we've got some injury updates that we got to talk about for a couple of players like Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar. Noot's got an injury and surgery that I was like, ooh, that will sound good. So I'll be telling you about that. We're going to talk a little bit MLB playoffs, but we start with something that I've gotten a lot of requests about, and that's free agent starting pitchers. Everybody wants to know, who are we signing? Who are we trading for? We knew that October was going to be quiet. Hein Bloom warned us during his press conference when he was introduced as the new president of baseball operations that, hey, things are going to be a little quiet in October. There's not going to be a lot going on. November, things will pick up after the World Series, and they'll have their GM meetings, and then things will start to, unfold a little bit. So a lot of the stuff we're doing it's just speculation. Nobody has answers for any of this stuff yet. All I can do is offer up names that I think the Cardinals should be interested in. In recent episodes, we've talked about some of the question marks surrounding the Cardinals rotation in 2026. This past year, Sonny Gray, Eric Fedde, Miles Michaelis, Matthew Liberatore, and Andre Pallante were your five main starters to begin the season. Steven Matz was like your sixth guy. And I know, like, you look at that group of pitchers and knowing what we know now about the trio of Fedde, Michaelis, and Pallante, all three of them being on the same team and not having a record like the Colorado Rockies is amazing to me. That's an exceptionally gruesome threesome of pitchers that the Cardinals were throwing out there every fifth day. Every fifth day, those guys were going. And to be as competitive as they were till the very end, I think that says something about what the Cardinals have on this roster, how the coaching staff was able to pull the best out of some of these guys. But we know how bad it got. Eventually the Fedde experience would get so bad that they gave him away to the Braves, who then gave up on him, and he joins the Brewers, who were desperate for arms down the stretch. Most believe he should have been traded during the last offseason, but that didn't happen, and then his stock plummeted as his ERA skyrocketed. I'm guessing he'll end up signing a minor league deal with somebody this spring, hoping to make a big league club. And we'll see. We wish nothing the best for Eric Fedde. It just didn't work out for him in St. Louis. So when they finally cut the cord on Fedde, it ended up opening up a spot for Michael McGreevy, right? Who finished 8-4 in 17 games. 16 of those were starts. Certainly a bright spot the rest of the season, and somebody we're looking forward to watching in 2026 and beyond. Miles Michaelis had his normal Michaelis season, some decent stretches, but some of the worst starts you'll ever see, because when it goes bad, it goes really bad for Miles Michaelis, and he gets destroyed by the opponent. He's now a free agent, and I'm going to assume that the organization will finally move on from him. I know that Mo is not around anymore, but I still have this PTSD from some of the moves and knowing what he might do and what he was always thinking. So I'm not going to shut the door completely on a Michaelis return, just because when we get to the free agent pitchers, you're going to see why there's really not a ton of great arms out there, at least not a ton of great healthy arms. So I'm not going to completely shut the door, but I'll say 97% of me feels like he won't be back, that they've kind of turned the page on that, but never say never. There's still a chance that Sonny Gray gets traded, and I honestly have no idea if he's going to be here or not. A lot of money for next season with Sonny, so we'll see how that goes. And then there's Andre Palante, who regressed at an alarming rate last year. Didn't win a game after July 28th, and the team would only win 10. Pardon me. They would win 2 of his final 10 starts, and they went just 12-19 overall in games he started last year. He was a problem. In one sense, we can look at this rotation and say the only guys that you're for sure about that's going to be there, like today, is Libby and McGreevy going into the season. Those are like the 2 guys who are locked into the rotation. And you could also say you have those 2 plus Sonny. You can put Palante in there if you want to. I'm going to go with a mix and say that as of right now, these are the spots that I'm just going to say are full as we go into this conversation. Sonny, Libby, and McGreevy. Just give me those 3. I'm not putting Palante in there yet. I think he's got to earn it again. So that leaves 2 spots open for other players. Now, one of these players could be an in-house guy, right? And is going to get a chance to win one of those spots other than Palante, who I fully expect them to give another opportunity to. It's fine. They can give him a chance. And if he shows out and becomes good, great. But if he's like he was last year, then no. But the guy that looks like they're going to give a real opportunity to become a starter next year is Kyle Leahy. Chaim Bloom has already stated that they want him to come into camp stretched out and prepared to compete for a spot in this rotation in 2026. That's fine. There's you heard a lot about that in the second half last year, that he's considered to have, a pitching arsenal that would work as a starter. So they're going to give him a chance there. You've also got some prospects looking to make the roster, like Quinn Matthews and Eshawn Henderson, who will certainly get a chance to prove that they should be up on the club in 2026. Do they have to be there opening day? No, but they'll give an opportunity to them in the spring. And if they look good, then by all means, why not, right? And when you're discussing payroll, I know we haven't heard a lot about payroll so far this offseason. And if they're going to spend some money, and you've kind of heard Chaim Bloom hint about this, that, if we're going to spend money, and he says as far as he knows, that ownership is on board with, doing what needs to be done, that starting pitching seems to be like the most logical choice of an area where money will go to. Okay. But who are the names? Who are these guys that they could spend money on? Who fit what the Cardinals are trying to do and where they are right now as far as winning, and what their plans are in 2026. I have got some names for you. We're going to go through the free agent class. We'll point out some people that, in a different tier. We've got top tier, we got middle, we got bottom. We'll get to all of that today. So we've got names for you. So have your pen and pencil ready to go. We'll write these down because I'm going to want your feedback on what you think the Cardinals should do. So we'll get you those names coming up here next on Locked On Cardinals. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. You get the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your favorite team and players in person. But getting tickets is where you could be a little bummed out. That could be the tough part. You got to deal with the queues, the login screens, the surprise fees, and it takes the fun out of buying tickets to go see your favorite teams, which is why I use Game Time, because they never let me down. This app gives the advantage back to fans. If you haven't used it yet, you're missing out, because Game Time is fast. It's easy. It's backed by their Game Time guarantee, where you always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time, and you get it at the best price, which is what we really, really want, right? We want to save some money and go see our favorite teams and players perform. Plus, all your fees are included so that the price you see is actually the price you pay. You'll know your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, which is really annoying if you've ever tried the other sites and you're like, it's stupid. Why would you do that? Go to a place that doesn't deal with those problems. You go to Game Time. They got zone deals, which are amazing too. You pick the section, and Game Time will pick the seats to help you save big. It's faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way you can buy tickets. So make sure you download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals as well. Now, before we get to the names in the free agent market that's, looks like they're going to be available, because some of them have like team options and mutual options and, they got, player options. So let's be clear on what the Cardinals are trying to do next year. Because you're going to be like, yeah, I want you to go sign this guy, and just, they're not going to break the bank and get all crazy. Long-term goal oriented is what they're shooting for. Heimblum has said repeatedly that he is not tanking. This is that winning is still the goal. They're looking long-term, but at the same time, they're not sacrificing the now. This is not where we want to lose as much as we can to get better picks, and say that's not what the plan is. There's the long-term goal, and they want to get there so they can sustain winning. That's what they're trying to achieve here. They're not trying to do it where it's like in one burst, where it's like, yeah, we win for a year and then we suck for 2 more. No, they want it to be like it normally has been in St. Louis, where winning is tradition and consistent winning. So, let's start at the top of the pyramid here, right? Some big free agent pitching names are going to be out there. Now, this is not a very sexy class by any means. Like the names that you're going to hear, you're going to be like, wow, that's amazing. No, there's really none of that, okay? Some of the bigger names are Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez. I know. It's not that sexy. There are guys like Chris Sale and Freddie Peralta. Those are sexy names, but they have club options. So they're almost guaranteed to be picked up by the Braves and the Brewers. So we can cross those 2 off. Dylan Cease, he's a big name, but had an incredibly disappointing season this year. ERA plus of just 87. Remember, 100 is league average. He was at 87 on a very good Padres squad. This is not when he was with the White Sox and that was bringing him down. He was on the Padres. That was a really good team, a playoff team. 87 ERA plus. You would think the market might be down on him, but he feels like one of those guys who, because you've seen him be really, really good at times, he seems like a guy that's going to get a bloated deal from a bigger market club like the Mets, who, crap the bed again this year. And how do they fix things? They just spend more money, right? That's what they do. So that feels like a very Mets move, is to overpay for somebody like Dylan Cease. And that type of contract is going to be way too rich and risky for the Cardinals. That's what it feels like to me. Framber Valdez was solid again this year for the Astros. I would much rather, if I was any team, would rather have Valdez than Dylan Cease. Did have that weird situation with his catcher this past year where he crossed him up or wasn't crossed up and hit the catcher and they looked mad at each other. But you're talking about what I would consider a premium pitcher at age 32 that will certainly be priced out of the Cardinals range. I just, again, a bigger market team like the Mets, somebody like that, I feel like is going to come in and, try to overwhelm him with money. At age 32, would I want to give somebody at age 32 a 6-7 year deal? No. And I don't think the Cardinals are either, but I can see one of these other markets just go, yeah, it's fine. We'll do it. 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. So that's not going to be somebody that's in the Cardinals' possibilities, in my opinion. Then you get Ranger Suarez, who had a phenomenal season with the Phillies and will certainly be looking to cash in on a long-term deal somewhere as well. Again, these are guys that somebody's going to throw silly money at them, and they're going to be overpaid, and it's not going to, in the long run, those deals are probably not going to work out, but big market teams will spend that way. A name to keep an eye on is Shane Bieber with the Blue Jays, actually starting Game 7 tonight against Seattle. Has got a player option for next year and is a big name. He's a former Cy Young Award winner. It's somebody that we've thought would look great with the birds on the bat. he just seemed like he'd always be a good fit at some point. Just felt very Cardinal-y. So certainly they'll kick the tires, but he's pitched pretty well in the postseason. And if he has another big game tonight and goes to the World Series, his price is going to go whoosh. And again, that's going to be a little too much for what the Cardinals will want to spend. But my guess is, again, that another big market team would swoop in and pay him handsomely. Again, I feel like the Mets are the ones that are going to be like, we need 6 dudes and just go crazy on their starting rotation after what happened to them this past year. That's the team that I feel like is really going to be looking to spend some money. So for the Cardinals, we're going to have to drop down another tier below that group. And that's where we get to a couple of former Cardinals in Zac Gallen and Jack Flaherty. Now, neither of them had the seasons they were hoping for. So some of the shine on their star has dimmed a little bit. Both are 30 years old now. And even though a mega 6 or 7 year deal is not likely, in my opinion, I certainly could see both of them signing a 3 or 4 year situation type of deal. That doesn't sound like out of the realm of possibilities. Obviously, you can do the opt-outs for these guys where you sign them for 4 years, and then there's an opt-out after 1 or 2 years. Like, there's things that you can do. Chaim Bloom did say that signing someone to a longer deal isn't off the table because they still want some guys ready to go when this thing gets turned around for the better, which could be next year or the year after that. So it's not like anybody they sign has to be a guy that's on a 1 year deal. So they could go 2, 3, 4, maybe a similar length to Sonny Gray's, which was like 3 years and then an option at the end of that. Personally, I've kind of turned the page on Jack Flaherty. I feel like we've went down that road, been there, done that. I don't need to go back there again. But Zac Gallen is someone I'm very much interested in if he doesn't have any ill will towards the franchise that drafted and then traded him in the Marcell Ozuna deal with the Marlins. I feel like I've read where he's talked a little tough about the Cardinals at points. So I don't even know if he has an interest in coming back to St. Louis, but certainly a guy just, not talking about personality wise, but just like his body of work is something that I would be interested in. There's also a group of guys that I'd also look at that I would consider another rung down, another level. They're guys that aren't going to jump off the page at you, but this is kind of the Cardinals zone for shopping. These guys have been solid pitchers, but because they aren't superstars, they could be had for a decent price in this day and age. Names like Nick Martinez, Zach Littell, who were both with the Reds at the end of the year last year. I think Zach Littell has got Cardinal written all over him. He just feels like somebody that fits what the Cardinals would be trying to do. There's also a couple of older players who are, I think, better than 1 year deals despite their age, and Merrill Kelly and Chris Bassett, who are both 37 years old, both solid pitchers who, maybe the team looks at, but at the same time, I'm not really trying to sign somebody of that age at this moment. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying I'm not actively looking at a 37-year-old pitcher right now. I would rather find somebody else younger. They don't have to be, in their 20s, but somebody around the 30 to 35 age is what I'm looking at more than 37 and up. But I feel like Merrill Kelly, he's pitched really well. Chris Bassett, I think, has been very good with Toronto. Multi-year deals for those guys at age 37, though. Just I don't need that for the Cardinals right now. Like, if the whole free agent board gets wiped out and you're picking at 37 years old and those guys are still there, then okay. But that's not who I am targeting. Let's put it that way. Then we get to another area where I think the Cardinals probably will be doing more of their shopping, and that's the guys that have shown promise or had good seasons before at one point or another, but injuries or down seasons have put them in a spot where they need one of those, what we call the prove it contracts, right? Some of these names are familiar and could use the Cardinals rotation openings as a springboard for more money down the road. They could be used as trade bait later on, stuff like that. But they're looking for a shot at a starting rotation spot, and the Cardinals got some openings here, and you could pitch in a lot worse spots than with the St. Louis Cardinals next year. The guy that's on this list that I've always kind of had a crush on is Dustin May, formerly of the Dodgers and the Red Sox. Injuries have set him back time and time again. He's probably had 35 arm surgeries. It seems like he's always got one. He's had control issues, but he's got some wicked nasty stuff when he's out there on the mound. Just tons of movement. When he's on, he's virtually unhittable. But is he on enough? Do you trust him enough to give him money and put him in your rotation? Because, the Dodgers moved on from him. Didn't have a lot of success with the Red Sox either. He's very intriguing to me, but I can totally see why they would stay clear of him with the injuries and the rough numbers this past year. Walker Buehler is another one. A few years ago, seemed to be an ace in the making for the Dodgers, and then the injuries hit, and things got so bad that when he was in Boston this year, that they just released him. Last year, he's closing out the World Series for the Dodgers, goes to Boston, gets released, ends up with the Phillies, where he pitches much better. He goes 3-0 with a 0.66 ERA over 13 2/3 innings, small sample size. But is that somebody you would take a chance on? I think some teams would. Cardinals could be one of them. Tyler Mahle, another former Red, but also went to the Twins, was with the Rangers this past year, has had a bunch of injuries in the last few seasons, but was really good last year until a rotator strain cut him down in June. On the shelf for quite a while, came back to make 2 more starts at the end of the year, was very good. Certainly somebody that I would look at, because I feel like injuries are going to be something you're going to have to deal with when you're shopping in this particular aisle. But he's a guy that I would look at. Zac Gallen was a highly sought after free agent just a couple of seasons ago. We thought the Cardinals would be interested in him when he was a free agent. Tampa Bay got him, ended up trading him to Baltimore for some pieces. Injuries hit him again. Not sure what his status is for 2026 just yet, but if he is healthy, he's definitely another one of those prove-it guys, a bounce-back candidate that you might be willing to take a chance on. A couple years ago, German Marquez appeared to be the staff ace of the Rockies. Injuries hit, and then he hardly pitched for them in 2023 and 24. Came back last year and had horrible numbers for the Rockies. Made 26 starts for a terrible Rockies team, granted, but it was bad. But is he somebody that's one of those reclamation projects where you're like, dude, I've seen this guy be really, really good. Let's get him out of Colorado. Let's get him into a pitcher-friendly ballpark and see what we can do. Is he still got some juice in that arm? Obviously, it's risk-reward for most of these guys, but that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to pitching these days, especially on the free agent market. You've got veterans like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander who are very, very old. Probably don't want to come to a place that is in a winning mode at this moment. But Max Scherzer's from St. Louis, so maybe you pull on that string and see what happens. Guys with mutual options like Michael King, if he becomes a free agent, people are going to pay him. Michael Lorenzen is a guy. Brandon Woodruff from the Brewers, although I suspect Milwaukee will bring him back. Jose Quintana was with the Brewers this year. Again, one of those older guys that if at the end of the day there's not a lot of people left, I have no problems with bringing Jose Quintana back to St. Louis. I was pissed when they let him get away. Lucas Giolito, another name that just a couple years ago, everybody wanted him, and then things went south. I'm curious which ones you're willing to take a risk on, if any of them, or do you just stay away altogether? Let me know. Maybe, perhaps a trade would suit the Cardinals better to acquire someone of the quality that they would want to fill a spot or two. If Sonny stays with Libby, McGreevy, you add a Zac Gallen or a Zach Littell, and then one of those bounce-back type of guys or veterans, you might have something to work with. And then maybe one of your prospects ends up coming up and shining. There's a way to put this together where it's not quite as dreary looking as it was last year. There's a way to do it. Do people want to come to St. Louis? That's the question. But of that group, picking out 2, I need you to pick out 2. That's what I want. I want you to pick out 2, and let me know in the comments section who you would add, and we can talk about it in an upcoming episode. News and notes about some injuries with the Cardinals. We got that coming up next here for you on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, you pick a bet. You put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Personally, I like how FanDuel gives you so many different ways to play. It's not the same thing every day. You can build the parlays. You can go player props. You can follow the live lines. Monday Night Football tonight, 2 games with the Bucs at the Lions, Texans at the Seahawks. Baker Mayfield has been a ton of fun to watch again with the Buccaneers. A lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball for them, so we're not exactly sure who he's going to be throwing to tonight, but Baker always seems to find a way. Lions have a ton of weapons to choose from, so pick your poison there. Texans and Seahawks, a little less star-studded, but Seattle wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba, he has been awesome this year. So if there's a guy that you're going to take a look at, I suggest him. Whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis, but on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on the YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast. Some injury updates for the Redbirds. Derek Gould reports from STLtoday.com that Brendan Donovan had surgery for a sports hernia in the first week of October to repair the damage. His timetable is to be determined based on recovery as the offseason progresses. So I wonder if that puts the kibosh on any trade talk with Brendan Donovan because his name has been circling. Ivan Herrera had the elbow surgery that we mentioned last week for bone spurring. We're hoping he recovers. He's going to take another crack at catching next year, so we'll see how that works out, but kind of tough to do that if you can't throw a ball. Lars Nootbaar had surgery on both of his heels to shave down Hagelin's deformities. Those are bone growths on the back of the heel where the Achilles tendon attaches. Yikes. That sounds awful. Ugh. No, thank you. But hopefully Newt will be okay. Mason Wynn had surgery on the slight tear of his meniscus, but should be ready to roll for spring ball. Game 7 of the ALCS between the Mariners and the Blue Jays will be tonight. Winner will move on to face the Dodgers in the World Series after they swept the Brewers in the NLCS. Rookie Trey Savage, excellent in Game 6 for Toronto again. And just like some other rookies like Cam Schlittler of the Yankees, Connolly Early with the Red Sox, they're using these rookies who didn't pitch all that much during the regular season, and they're using them in huge, huge spots, like to survive. It was Schlittler versus Early in Game 3 of the wild card series between the Red Sox and the Yankees. They leaned on him. In Schlittler, I should say, they leaned on him against the Blue Jays. Blue Jays have been leaning on Trey Savage, and it just goes to show that these rookies are able to contribute much sooner than we're used to. So fingers crossed that, a guy like Liam Doyle for the Cardinals will contribute sooner rather than later for this organization, considering he was a top 5 pick. Got all the hype coming into 2026. He's coming out of college and not high school, so he's more mature. So, you get a Doyle and an Eshaun Henderson and a Quinn Matthews, and if those 3 guys are ready for 2026, then, perhaps the Cardinals will be competitive much sooner than we anticipated. And if not, well, it could take longer. But Game 7 tonight, George Kirby for Seattle against Shane Bieber for Toronto. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Game 1 of the World Series is set for Friday night. We don't know when and where yet because, we don't know who's in it. So I said from the beginning of the playoffs, Seattle and the Dodgers in the World Series when I picked Seattle to win just because I didn't want to pick the Dodgers, but still could come to fruition. We'll see. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram and everywhere else at Locked On Cardinals as well. Obviously, you can like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube channel. And if you don't like and you don't subscribe, we can't grow. So I need you to help me help you get more information about the Cardinals moving forward. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals. Have a good one.